students. I'm very glad to meet you though through online version, online technologies. I'm again with you. I am Dr. Asanova, Doctor of Philosophical Sciences, and it is written right here. Today we will be talking about categories of dialectics. Well, so what are categories? Categories. All the sciences have their own instruments. And these instruments of cognition, of knowledge, is categories. All the sciences, since they are being developed, they have their own categories. But these categories were not developed at once. It was dependent according to the discoveries of new laws, of new things. Well, if all the sciences have their categories, then the categories may be divided into different categories, or into different, differently according to what kind of sciences we are talking about. Okay? Well, this is done in Russian, I'm very sorry. And I can just now translate, okay? There are pair categories of dialectics, okay? But before this, I would like to say that, such sciences as chemistry, biology, physics, astrology, astronomy, okay? They have their own categories. What is it? Categories as the steps of knowing, steps of investigations. And these steps are, those steps which demonstrate this or that discovery in their field. That's why categories may be private or unitary, depending on what kind of sciences we are talking of. So the physics have their own categories or terms of for investigation, right? Chemistry, biology, anatomy, etc. These are private, unitary sciences, but fundamental, nevertheless, fundamental sciences. Their object is this or that sphere of nature or society. Well, second type of categories are common or general categories. These categories are used in several sciences. For example, categories of mathematics. They are used in many sciences, general categories. And there are universal categories. Universal categories, they are philosophical categories. That means that these terms or these words as steps of cognition are used in every science, are used in all the activities of the human being, are used in everything. And they are called as philosophical or universal or dialectical pair categories, because they are all the time given in pairs. For example, cause or reason and consequence. If there is a reason, then there is a consequence. Then there is essence, and phenomena. So there is appearance and what is beyond that appearance, essence. Then, possibility and reality. Possibility and reality. What is possible, it may be transformed into reality. Then, form and content. Everything in the nature or society or in the human being have their own form. What is seen, what is visible, but beyond what is visible, there is some content which is formed. It's very interesting. Categories are very, very interesting ideas. And there are, of course, other triple categories, as for example, unitary, common, and universal. Okay? That's very interesting, etc. So if we have here some categories which are given in Russian, and I am translating. So reason and consequences, form and content, part and whole, phenomenon and essence, unitary and common, possibility and reality, then accidents and necessity, accidents and necessity. Okay, let's go on. Well, I have told about that. For example, I would like to draw your attention to the categories of biology. Atom, molecule, but these first, of course, were called as terms or categories of biology. But along with the development of the society, along with the development of other sciences, these terms could be used even in the society. So they are becoming, or they are acquiring a new status, not only as unitary, not only as private categories, but also as common categories being used in many, many other sciences. Mostly, for example, here we can say in sociology. When we say, for example, family is an atom of the society. Atom of the society. Okay? So family is a social phenomenon. And saying that a family is an atom of society, then we use what kind of law is in biology. We use this in comprehension of the social phenomena. The same is with the term, with the category of molecule. So first, being unitary, being, how to say, private, being used only in one science, it is becoming used, it is coming to be used in many, many, even social sciences. It's very interesting. Not saying about mathematical categories, okay? Well, here I'm very sorry, also it is given in Russian, but here we can read the dialectics as a system. You know, the word categories, as dialectics is also called as theory of knowledge, okay? Then also as, so dialectics as theory of knowledge, so they are practically the same. They were called in this way. Well, and these were principles and laws of dialectics. About them we will be talking a little bit later. Well, principles of dialectics we called a little bit earlier as development, universal connections, objectivity, and systemization. Well, and about the laws we will be talking a little bit later. Okay. I have just told about them to you. Common categories are those ones which are used in several subjects. Universal categories are those which are used in all the sciences. They are such as reason and consequence, accidents and necessity, possibility and reality. Let's talk about the reason and consequence, my dears. Why they are called as the pair categories? Pair categories are called because of their interrelationships, interinfluence, intertransformation, so to say. What was as a consequence, it may be conceptualized as a reason or cause for something different, just producing other consequence, or just producing other reason. And what was investigated as a reason could be also approached, could be also termed as consequence. So they are manifesting these universal ties of the world, universal connections, all the time mutual, depending from each other, mutual transforming into each other. For example, what is the reason of, natural things or social things, whether we are talking about the society, or whether we are talking of the nature, or whether we are talking of some thought, laws of the thought, okay? So what was called as a reason, it may be the consequence of that reason, okay? Well, for example, rain. Rain is a reason for very good grass, for very good future harvest, for very good enriching the land, enriching the grave, enriching the earth, and so the plants could grow very nicely. So good plants, good grass may be the consequence of rain. And that good grass may be the reason, being the consequence of the rain and good rain and the early spring rain and even summer rain. It could be a very nice reason for very good food for animals, okay? And that being very good food for animals, they are being fed, their meat could be the reason, being the consequence, it becomes at the same time as a reason for good life, for better life for people. And better life for people could be being the consequence, maybe the reason of better relationships, better interties, better mood, better behavior. But just imagine the opposite. Imagine the opposite. No rain, poor land becoming dry, no good grass, then no good animal, fat animal, no, how to say, no, even it may produce some diseases, etc. So in the nature it is a kind of interrelationships, not being stopped, universal intercommunication, interrelationships, one producing the other producing the next. So in this way we may understand the universal dialectical category, reason and consequence. Reason and consequence. If you are, for example, all the time angry, this angriness being the reason, could be the reason of bad environment. This may be reason for bad climate in the society, in the work, among the collective, among the people. If you are all the time angry, if you are all the time furious, so these have very bad, negative energy, influencing and making the energy around. And that energy around being caused by that bad and furious negative energy may be as a consequence of that reason, maybe again as a reason for worse interrelationships in the families. And then in the families could be great conflicts, and these conflicts being the consequences of those first factors could be the reason at the same time of more and more conflicts, just producing the divorces, and the divorces producing orphanship, children without parents, etc. These universal ties you can find everywhere. So these categories, reason and consequence, are dialectical categories, manifesting universal connections. So these are what categories are, you know, universal terms reflecting those ties, interrelationships, connections in the nature, in the society, in the human thought. And the science is to reveal them, to concretize. If you know the common thing, this universal law, then you can apply this universal law, if you know them very well, universal law in the investigation of this or that sphere. Well, for example, accidents and necessity. Accidents and inevitability. Accidents and inevitability. These are very interesting categories. We think sometimes that most of things which occur in nature, in the society, they occur by accidents. For example, some car accidents. Or for example, some disease, let's say. We say, oh, accidentally, that person got sick. But by philosophy, by dialectical knowledge, we do know, and we are to know, we have to know that no accidents occur. Accidents, this is simply a term which reflects our, how to say, our not knowledge yet. We don't know yet. We simply accept something as an accident. For us, it is an accident. But when we start to examine this, to investigate why that car accidents occurred, why? Then accidents starts to be transformed into what? Into inevitability, that car accidents then was to happen. Why? Because the driver was so much sleepy because he did not sleep during the night, or was very much busy in some work, or there were some conflicts in the families or in the office where he works with colleagues, or he did not make some repayment of this car, and he hoped simply to very quickly reach his place of destination. When you begin to investigate that thing which is reflected as an accident, then these accidents slowly, slowly, slowly is transformed into inevitability. These car accidents was to happen. If you analyze the reasons, if you analyze just from part by part, coming to the, reaching to the reasons, it's very interesting. So nothing accident may happen in the life. Nothing accidental. Everything is inevitable. If you know this law, then for you, nothing accidental can occur. You simply know that this was to happen. But we don't know. Of course, there are a lot of cosmical laws. How, for example, people meet with each other and then love each other and then fall in love with each other and then marry. And then during some months of mutual life, they find themselves as not appropriate with each other. But children are born. And they have to live together, have to be used to each other, perhaps without any love, even sometimes without any respect to each other, all the time being in conflict. So what is it? How could these people meet each other? How could it happen that they fell in love with each other? Who knows? Perhaps this was an inevitable action given by some universal law. You should know the life. You should learn the life. You should learn the lesson of wisdom. Who knows? So all the life is given for us as a lesson to be wiser, to be cleverer. Life becomes as a great teacher. So this is a category of inevitability, of accidents and inevitability. Accidents, of course, yeah, something may happen really accidentally, but accidents just in our perception. We say, oh, this is called by accidents, or this happened by accidents. But when you begin to study deeper and deeper, then you see that no accidents it was. It was an inevitable result. But accidents is a form of inevitability. It is a kind of being perceived by our consciousness, by us, as an accident. These very interesting categories, dialectical categories. The same is with, for example, phenomenon and essence. Everything is appeared in front of our eyes or ears or even hands in front of our senses. We see, for example, a very nice lady. It's very kind appearance. There's a kind of what? Phenomena of beauty, for example. Yeah? By its form, by its gracious walking, gracious talking, etc. But what is beyond that appearance? What is beyond that phenomena? Where the phenomena fully expresses the essence? No, of course. No. Phenomena. So, for example, what we see, we can just choose something and say, oh, this is great phenomena. Phenomena of beauty, for example, or phenomena of some bad behavior, or phenomena of very noble attitude. But whether this noble attitude, which is from the first glance, is perceived as a phenomenon, maybe the full manifestation of the essence. What lies in the essence? What is the essence beyond the thunder? What is the essence beyond the thunder? What is the essence beyond the nice, how to say, nice vision, for example, which we see, which we accept, perceive? That is great contradiction. What we perceive and what is in the essence of what we perceive. And here they say that essence is hidden beyond the phenomena. If, for example, phenomena could fully express the essence, then science had nothing, or could have nothing, had even nothing to investigate. Everything, if it could be revealed at once in front of our sight, in front of our hearings, in front of our, and what we, and how we perceive. No. What we perceive with our eyes, or with our ears, or with our skin, hands, okay? It is small dose of what is hidden beyond the perception. And for knowing the essence, science is needed in order to know why, for example, the thunder is happening. What is beyond that? And of course it was revealed. It is a kind of just interplay of charges, some physical laws. That's so interesting. You know, there is science which is called iridography, or iridodiagnosis, or iridotherapy. Before the development of such kind of science, people simply could have a look at the man and said, and not guess, but could say, by judging by their eyes, by the color of the eyes, by the expression of the eyes, by the form of the irids, what kind of disease he or she had. But now there are medical instruments, equipments, from which or by the help of which one can see, observe, and then say about the diagnosis by just investigating the eyes, iridography, and then diagnosis, making some diagnosis, and then making some therapy just through eyes, by means of eyes, iridotherapy, diagnosis, and iridographs. By the pulse, for example, by the pulse, there are a lot of, especially in earlier times, there were people, very much gifted people, who could just have some, just touching the pulses, they could say about the diseases. They could even, count just even more than 500 kinds of beatings of pulses. 500 beatings of pulse. These are different kinds of beatings of pulse. And according to the touching, what kind, and seeing and perceiving what kind of beat was that. And they were just differentiated according, for example, this is a beating like of that, or this bird, or this, or that animal, etc. So one should analyze this. Very interesting and very important fields of investigation, just by forms. And forms may be here sensed by fingers. But what is beyond these forms? This is phenomena, and what is beyond the phenomenon is the essence. Here we can see, for example, irida, phenomena, and what is beyond the phenomena. So investigating the essence. But one cannot, just by the phenomena, state the essence. It is impossible. It should be analyzed, it should be investigated, it should be put in different situations and making some analysis, and only then talking about the essence. Science moves from one essence to another essence, they say, and deeper, and the whole essence may not be reached even. This is the tragedy of science, tragedy of man. He wants to know, but it is impossible to know everything. Life is so short, and human beings' potentials are also not limited. They are limited. And that is why great scientists, they use that time in order to, that very short time in order to investigate coming from one essence to another essence, in order to reach and in order to discover this or that law of the nature. And they are manifested in the laws of physics, in the laws of biology, in the laws of chemistry, in the laws of astronomy, etc. You know, very interestingly, that's so pity that our historical museum does not work now. And it has not been worked during last, I don't know, even for 5 or 6 years, unfortunately. There were very interesting cultural things there. So very ancient Kyrgyz people, they had, because they lived among mountains, and most of them were engaged with hunting in order to survive, in order to feed their elders and children. So how could they manage to go to the top of the mountains and hunt deers and mountainous goats, etc.? And how could they walk on very, very hard and heavy snow? And ancient Kyrgyz people had very interesting boots. So these boots were like this. The square one boot was so large, so round and large. The second also. And they could put their feet on these large, round spaces made of skin, very much processed skin, and they could, so just imagine those Canadians or those who live in the northern part of these were Kyrgyz people, ancient Kyrgyz people's boots. How could they discover that law of physics, which was discovered in the 18th and 19th century in Europe? That was a discovery of the law, just simply practical. Discovery of the law that the more is the space of pressure. The more is the space of the pressure, the less is the volume of pressure. The more is the space of pressure, the less is the volume of the pressure, perhaps, like this. So this law was discovered later, much later in Europe. But the earlier Kyrgyz people, ancient Kyrgyz people, they used such boots, not formulating this law. They simply knew, they simply discovered, oh, this is more necessary, this is more, more safe, and this is what can help them escape from being sunk into heavy snow. This is a law. Discovery of the law, practical discovery of the law. This is practical philosophy in order to survive. This, for example, transportable house of the Kyrgyz people, nomadic people who lived in very severe climate and very severe surroundings of the mountains. Just only 1 century, when Kyrgyz people, being able to live in such a very comfortable situation, comfortable life, having these cars, having these very comfortable houses, even in the villages, having these bridges, having these roads. But more than 100 years ago, people being nomads, they had to adapt to the nature, to the severe nature, and how they could survive. How could they make their transportable house from felt handmade, of course, from these wooden sticks. I think someday we will talk about that very nice transportable house what was easily established and could be easily re-established, and then could be easily transformed, transported from one place to another place. It was transportable house. Well, let's go further. This is, of course, what I am talking about is just reflecting the categories, pair categories, which are interrelated, are interchanged, and becoming each other, interflowing into each other. I told about this, that categories are steps of cognition, okay? I told about these categories, form and contact. Well, I told about this, that the goal of the science is to reveal more and more essence. And dialectics of the categories are in their impact and interaction. But at the same time, they contradict each other. Even there is a mutual fight. And you know, for example, in Chinese ornament, Chinese movement of yin-yang. So yang flowing into yin flowing into yang. By the way, this form, which is called, of course, as Chinese, can be met in ancient Kyrgyz ornaments. And you know, all these Kyrgyz people's domestic units, things in carpets, in different necessary domestic things, all the time you see these very nice ornaments. And among these ornaments you can see this interflowing of yin-yang. This is not only Chinese, because this is universal law of the nature. Day and night, black and white, okay? Up and down, right and left, male and female, everything being developed in pair, in opposites, and flowing into each other. And this, infinite interflow was manifested in very nice ornaments of ancient Kyrgyz people, which have been preserved up to now. Okay, and the example of such dialectics is particularly displayed in medicine. I have just mentioned about that. Well, here it is in Russian. I'm very sorry. I could not manage to translate into English here, content and form. For example, I took the example of flu. So flu has its content and its outer manifestation, outer expression, it is form. The form of the flu is what? Is just cough, sneezing, then high temperature. It may be not very much high, but nevertheless temperature, and sneezy, how to say, hot body, weakness, runny nose, runny nose. So this is commonly known form of the flu. Okay? But to its invisible contact, we refer a change in the composition of blood, number of leukocytes, erythrocytes, hemoglobins, increase of body temperature, that in its sum can lead to the change of usual form of the man in his healthy state. So I mean this, how to say, this dialectics of the categories of form and content in the example of a flu. But this is very commonly known sickness. But there are many other diseases, tuberculosis, then bronchitis, then pneumonia, then other lung or spleen or other diseases. Of course, many diseases have their forms, commonly known forms. And in many diagnostic, most of diagnostical process, medical workers use what has been developed before. Because there are no very much new diseases. Most diseases are known. But now we may say about the pandemics. It's very interesting that pandemics, this is COVID-19, could be expressed, could be manifested in the form of a flu. But it's very interesting that some outer forms, some expressions could be different, And content also could be different. But it was last year. But this year, even these forms of the manifestation of that COVID-19 perhaps is becoming quite different. They say about the Indian new stam. Who knows? So this all should be investigated. How could be through forms, the content used. Okay. So content, as I have told, needs its scientific investigation. It's being measured. So mathematics is here quite important and necessary to be used. Well, how can we explain the process of influence of the content upon the form? For example, diabetics, or the increase of sugar in the blood, is manifested in redness of the skin, itching, desire to eat more and more. A very bright example of the influence of the form upon the content is a correct breathing technique, by the way. So we are talking about the interconnection, inter-impact, inter-influence. And we are talking about how by the form we get influence upon the content. And here I was talking about the using of right breathing techniques. Just by this form, good, correct breathing technique, we can influence the flow of the disease. Could how to say, decrease the disease, could lessen the influence of disease upon the human body. Breathing technique is quite an important form. It is form. How can we, just this pranayama, just very deep we may put one finger upon this nostril and making deep breathing in. Okay, this is very interesting. When we breathe in, oxygen comes just down, but energy, which is called as chi, comes up. And through this, so to say, top of the head, just going to the universe. And when you stop breathing, in that moment, there is enriching with blood of the whole organs of the body. This is quite a necessary influence, which is influence of form upon the content. When you enrich your body with the blood movement. And many, many diseases could be therapized. Well, here I wrote about the systematic practicing of pranayama can totally change the way of disease to the better. A very seldom known ancient Indian technology to change the position of lying according to the open nostrils. This is the form. So most of us don't know this. Very nice medical technology, my dears. So to know what nostril, right or left, is more open, more working, then you should lie on that side which is more open. And it can be closed just in a moment. And then again, but slowly, you should lie on this open side. And then again, in just a moment, again it becomes closed, this becomes open. And you again change into position into opposite. Slowly, of course. And by this balancing of the energy, you also therapize, energize, so to say, energize your organism. Because most of diseases do occur because of the blocks of the energy in the organism. But the organism is quite a wonderful system, wonderful computer, wonderful divine system which can be self-therapized, self-balanced, self-organized. But for this self-organization of the body, we should know some techniques, that pranayama, this lying from the closed side to the open side of the nostrils, okay? And then very nicely cleaning. For example, in the Vedic system, they clean the nose not less than 12 times. They clean the eyes not less than 40 times. You see? When you clean the eyes with water, not very much cold, not very much hot, of course, but warm, just tolerable warmth, tolerable warmth of water, you clean it with your eyes, then you also help your organism. You help your vision, you help your eyes to see, to be able to see without any glasses, and making some gymnastics for eyes. They are very much known. And this is pranayama, or breathing techniques. And then some moral things, just seeing very positively, thinking positively, faith, deep faith. We don't know whether it is form or content, but it is more faith. But it is just unity of form and content. When you have great faith, then it will be influencing very, very geniusly, very strongly. Okay. We can bring a lot of examples of dialectics of other categories. I told about that, reason and consequences, etc. Okay? Phenomenon and essence, I told about that. Okay? Everything what is beyond of what is visible demands investigation. Yes, I told that essence and phenomenon are not coincident. Be they equal, nothing can be left for science. I have told to you, it is a kind of repetition. Okay? So, we have told about the dialectics of categories and the different types of categories according to the sciences. Thank you for your attention. See you next time.